What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. And today, we're going to cover Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, Episode 2. And I get it, some people are going, oh, really, a Telltale title? Why isn't he reviewing this or that game? But you know what? Sometimes I have a couple extra hours, and I get one of these titles, and I decide to sit down and play it. And so that's what we're going to cover today. Now, remember, this is a shared engine with the prior title, so I won't cover graphics and some other elements in as much detail as I usually do. So let's see how Jesse and the group are doing trying to unravel the mystery of the gauntlet he found from Episode 1. So here's my review for Minecraft Season 2, Episode 2. Well, at least this one's longer than the last episode, dodgeball lineup RPG choices, and going from here to there just because. As always, graphics are up first. We know what this is going to look like and run like, and Episode 2 really hasn't changed from Episode 1. It's Minecraft. It looks pretty good and runs fairly well, even if it's still hampered by its sometimes random performance for some gamers on some machines. It doesn't seem to run as well as, say, Batman Season 2, especially on camera pans, though, where the game engine pans like a damn backyard barbecue recording from that drunk uncle no one seems to invite to the party, but he just always shows up. I don't know why these titles seem to have these problems for so many people on that kind of scene, but they do, and they crop up a bit here and there on this title. But you know what? You could have the best engine in the world, and if you don't do anything interesting with it, it's not going to matter. Sadly, this game doesn't, and it's basically like working on the set of the second season of Jericho, the TV show, when the company reluctantly says, okay, we'll go ahead with more episodes, but here's only $50 and you're recording your episodes with a single LCD ring bought from Amazon. Because really, the grandeur of the last season is gone graphically, and even the rare elements of last episode with the underwater catastrophe of blocks wearing blocks on their heads with transparent blocks and calling it a swimming mask doesn't actually exist at all here, with very little actual travel. And while new locations do look pretty cool at the start, the game truncates you down to a couple rooms from those, negating any feeling of awe in their exploration, and in fact, negating the exploration almost entirely from the game. And of course, that doesn't mean that all locations are terrible. Later on, there's a couple interesting spots, and of course, the by now expected complex minecart ride that makes Escher paintings look like a friggin' Chevron logo. But that's pretty much all there is. Graphically, down to the texturing and effects, it's what you'd expect from a Telltale title. No more, no less. And while technically that's fine, emotionally and really artistically, it is actually very blah. Sound, music, and voice.
You don't know anything, Stella, so zip it.
Ooh, how do you put up with that little voice of his, Jesse? I know I never could.
If I remember...
Don't worry, guys! Everything is out!
You know what? Let's go with sound first this time. Honestly, this actually isn't bad, and when you're racing through the game world's version of Mount Doom in Minecraft form, I was surprised by little elements like the crack of wooden stress of the minecart paths and the various effects throughout those locations that play around you. While not stunningly detailed at all, it's the little bits like that where other games would maybe just have epic music instead of the sound effects, and it sort of mends it all together, and that's an extra step that I liked. They also did some fantastic stuff with sound processing in a couple later locations in the game, and the echo ringing off the walls of large ice caverns mixed with that tight, claustrophobic, packed-in sound when you're saving the life of the world's worst second-in-command. It is done very well and offers a layering and a dimensional feel to the sound that's welcome, and I think it adds immersion to locations. As a package, I'd say this is pretty good for a game that really has to crib most of its source material from another title anyway. And that brings us to music, and I have to say, man, I am still not a fan. It's not because the music's the G-rated soothing tunes of tracks that would make Kenny G look like Slayer, or even the fact that at times the synth in some areas seems suspiciously like they knew the title track was the best part and tried to repeat it. It's not even the instrument choice because, while not my favorite style, the title track, as mentioned a second ago, shows that a catching Minecraft theme is actually possible. Instead, it's the fact that it is just so goddamn start and stop, leaving some moments of the game feeling completely barren. Now, we know this in game music design, where sometimes music does fade away to allow for the sound effects to take hold, or many times to offer a unique palette cleanser and special moment that can be impactful without someone just going to town on a trumpet in the background. But here, it actually happens far too often and in some really weird spots. There's this one instance in the middle of a destroyed city where you're gonna go talk to the big baddie, and as you're getting to them, the music just stops playing. Nothing else happens. No more stories introduced, no music is played, and there's just the sound of an 1880s gentleman's club. Wood hitting wood. As a package, I'd say it's unobtrusive, but it's also unremarkable and without really any memorable moments, which sadly means it adds very little to the game overall. Voice. Again, the main characters are fine. Jesse's grown on me, and while Radar comes across as How to Write a Complainer 101 poster child, he's incredibly annoying, and that actually works for that character. But it is the side characters, like the ones you meet and talk to in the city at the start of the game, that are terrible. It's a goddamn voice combo breaker, going from emotive to emotionally neutered. And it doesn't do the game any favors when it's not furthering the story either or at all. Also, the game does nothing with the excellent character that was introduced in episode 1 I talked about, the Baron Munchausen of game characters. He was a bright light in that first episode, and I actually adored his delivery. Instead here, his time snipped down and averaged to the point of making him one more of the ever-growing cast of shadow people that follows Jesse around so he can point at him and say, "I got your back, buddy," like 300 friggin' times. As a package, very lackluster aside from a couple of the mains which were fine. Gameplay. You know, when you think about it, fittingly enough, in another IP Telltale made a terrible game from, Jurassic Park the movie, Jeff Goldblum, playing himself but cooler, says, "Are you going to have dinosaurs in your dinosaur park?" I have the same question about story in Season 2 Minecraft Story Mode. Jesse and the party are pretty much still facing off against the so enigmatic he might as well be a friggin' Hellraiser box admin. And for some of the game, he's pretty much a rampaging Godzilla-style monster made of cool colored squares. Then later he changes to basically an evil version of Zack from Saved by the Bell, if Zack was a sentient cross-eyed snowman with plans to rule, well, whatever he wants to rule. And then the game somehow ropes you into traveling to the bad guy's lands because even though you just friggin' Voltroned his monster of destructive pummeling +3, he made it snow. And if you don't come visit him at his home, he's gonna make it snow more. That's the story. Now to get there, and while you are there, you solve puzzles and you fight enemies. Actually, scratch that, you don't solve any puzzles whatsoever, and the bad guys count as less than a dozen or close to that for the entire game. Now I do get it, that might be okay because we know these games aren't based on 26 hit combos like an Injustice 2 battle with someone on Adderall that's playing the game and yelling at his cat. Instead, they're narrative titles, and I think we expect action to be commensurate with that style of game. But I mean, come on. It's narrative driven, and the weight of these games has notoriously been on the story side to offset the lack of high-level action. That's the way it is. That's the way we were sold on these. But this has to be the most narrative-light Telltale episode ever, bar none. Nowhere are there interesting improvements like the Batman 2 season's new pathways and splitting action or duality of character. And in fact, nowhere is there actually an interesting plot and drive of the first season, let's say. And even a reveal at the end of this episode isn't a reveal at all. It's the equivalent of sitting down and yelling Hannibal Lecter's the bad guy at the starting of the movie. We know he's the bad guy, but why? The movie goes on to help flesh that out. Minecraft just says surprise, then sort of walks off without realizing surprise requires investment. It yells there's a mystery, but doesn't further expand the story very much at all, and doesn't use much gameplay that connects to the mystery itself to elevate those downtimes. I mean, take for example the first bits of the game. Sure, there's this big bad guy pounding the shit out of the city walls like it's the last day for a sale on Hot Wings at Walmart, but you beat him for a while till he falls apart, then he reforms to become another bad guy. And sure, later on you fight a couple zombies and join a shooting range, but if those sound like random events to you, good, because they completely are in this game. It is tremendously difficult to care in a title like this when it flashes up your story is changing on the screen, when there is literally, at this time, no real story or emotional connection. It's not completely a disaster though, and episode 2 does continue the one bit that I like, which is the little building elements. And in this episode, you rebuild a building that might mean a great deal to you, and you're given a good amount of flexibility to create it whatever way you desire. And that's the issue. Story mode is at its best when it delivers more than just the graphical elements of its borrowed IPs, but also adds in the merging of gameplay. Thus, the word mode actually begins to make sense. Also, I guess another kudo is that in some strange black magic ritual of time and space that only Neil deGrasse Tyson or that Miss Cleo lady who had clairvoyance but couldn't see the FBI coming could explain, the game actually lasted a bit longer for me than episode 1. If there's any mystery here, it's actually that one. Fun factor, this was an absolute slog. First off, I get it, some folks are gonna like this, that's great, as many maybe just want more adventures in Minecraft, and that makes sense for them, I applaud it. But for me, this is Minecraft story mode, and maybe we found out why story mode doesn't actually exist in the real game in any kind of real format, and maybe it's not fit to survive anyway despite my enjoyment of the first season. And I get it, these games are, even in Telltale's design, skewed a bit younger, but the enjoyment from season 1, I think, shows that it can be done without negating anything interesting other than watching Jesse basically pick dodgeball teams every 30 seconds when someone wants to perform an action and pissing off whoever he doesn't choose. So the continued failure, to me at least, of season 2 to get started is more of a mystery than why Mr. Snowman has picked the mayor of Squaretown to kick the shit out of. There are barely any locations, an absolute dearth of interaction, and gameplay that shows the worst that Telltale games can offer. So as you guys know, I rate games that are episodic on the 2 ratings, buy or wait until a later time, or if you get it free from somebody. This is a wait. This is the kind of wait that you yell at someone when they step off into traffic because they're too busy shuffling music on their child labor box. The end result is this. The game's narrative is very poor, and it does not actually do very much gameplay-wise to offset that. In the end, it's not very fun, and honestly, it feels very, very low effort. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Twitter or Patreon. That's how I continue to give you guys reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. This week, you'll see reviews from me for Uncharted Lost Legacy, as well as Agents of Mayhem and 3 other titles. Peace out, and enjoy the rest of your week.